What's going on, guys? This is the Real with Neal Podcast. I wanted to create this medium. If this is your first time watching one of these videos, my name is Neal Smith, and I wanted to create a medium, create a podcast where I speak to people who are renters that may be considering home ownership but really don't know the ins and outs. I want to speak to that. I have my friend here, my sister in Christ, my person that I labor with, but we just fight the good fight of faith, Elder Dara Jones. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, Listen, I always refer to him as pastor because I am also prophetic, but if you've ever listened to this man teach, this is a pastor. So he's got a man of many hats, got a lot of things he's talented in.
Yes.
And that's definitely chasing him down. But I'm so happy to be here with you, my brother. Thank you for inviting me into this space to have this discussion.
Yes. Just thank you for being a part of this. It's just a blessing. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am an elder. Neal and I actually, we do go to church together.
Yes.
And so I'm an elder, recently ordained. And I would say that that's probably one of my most recent proudest titles. I don't know how to separate ministry from who I am and what I do on a day-to-day, but you need that insight as well. Professionally, I have been a corporate recruiter for about the past 20 years.
Wow.
Recently, the Lord has moved me into as an account executive. And so that's more of a sales-based position.
Congratulations.
I'm excited to grow my professional experience and get that under my belt. But also recently, I became a homeowner.
Hey, let's clap it up for that.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to share details about kind of that journey and the revelation, because at one point I was like, I'll never buy a house. Like I can't be nailed down. I'm also a mother to an amazing 6-year-old, about to be 7-year-old little boy. He is the joy and the light of my life. He is my road dog. He is my advisor at times. He is my reality check all the time.
Yes.
And so much of what I do is to help show him how to live in the world and help to give him a right perspective. And so all of it ties in together.
Isn't parenthood just a blessing?
It is. Let me say this.
Yes.
When my son was born,
because
the experience behind his birth, before he was born and then carrying him and then his actual birth, there was a lot of drama. It was just a lot of drama. We both went through life-threatening experiences, and I had to focus on doing my best to stay pregnant so that he could make it here. And so I think when you go through a pregnancy and it's like that, you miss some of the opportunities to just feel overjoyed because you're just feeling relieved that you got there.
Wow.
And that's just kind of in the forefront. And so for me, his birth, me going into the, space of parenthood was a lot of like, I didn't think I was going to get here. I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think we would make it. And so I immediately had this overwhelming sense of gratitude that we made it.
Yeah.
And then I had to tell myself, I choose not to be scared of what's out there. I choose not to parent my child from a space of what's going to get them. Because we already went through, for lack of a better expression, we went through hell and back before he took a breath. And so I chose and still choose every day to parent him from the space of there is goodness that he is and can have and I can expose him to.
Yes.
And also I have all these ideas about what I want it to look like and what I want it to be. But Lord, you tell me, because you chose me to be his mom. And I have ideas, but you have the plan. So it's a constant space of surrender. But there's so much freedom in that space of surrender.
That was so powerful what you just said. And one thing that I took away from what you just said was you had a made up mind and you made a decision. When you said I choose, you decided like I'm remaining firm
Mm-hmm.
on this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the key thing, is the power of a decision, the power of just making a made up mind.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about a little bit of what your motivation was into home ownership?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only way that I can truly help anyone to understand it from my perspective is to give a little background.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I recently turned 40. So I had my son when I was 33,
Okay.
turning 36, 36, 34.
I said it was
And
like
so
36.
that math don't quite math.
Right.
And so before that, I had said to the Lord, if I don't get married and have kids by 30,
Okay.
I will just be the cool auntie. And I was at peace with that. I was
Right.
traveling the world, and it was so fulfilling, and it was what I was in front of me, what I thought I desired, what I wanted. Or
Yeah.
it is what I desired. It wasn't a thought. It wasn't like I was being fooled for all that time. That's just where my life was positioned, and those things were in my path.
Right.
And so then, you know, got a baby. Got, you know, here he is, here he's coming. And so there was still a little bit of this space within myself where I thought, you know, we could just, you know, jet set together. I was working at a really high point in my career, and I just had really had the opportunity to kind of say I would like to do this, and that was happening.
Okay.
And so that just gave me all this freedom. And then life things started to happen. My parents both got sick.
Yeah.
My mom passed away first, and in her passing, I moved myself and my son in with her to be her primary caregiver.
Right.
I left my career.
Right.
Because I just wanted to focus on my mom.
Right.
And so when she passed, I was like, well, I guess I got to figure out what I'm going to do from here. And so that led me back into my career field. And I was trying to maintain her home. And I still didn't know, like, did I really want to do this? How did I feel about being a homeowner? I realized that I did want it, because I saw my son running around in the backyard that I grew up in.
Yes.
And there was something so powerful about that image that I realized I want to give him that.
Yeah.
I also want to create stability for us.
Yes.
And that took me into this space of thinking about, well, where do I really want to raise him?
Yes.
What opportunities do I want to make sure he's exposed to?
Right.
Is this the city, or is there another city that's a better fit for us? And so then I had to think about all of these things.
I love it.
And get into the space of deciding that let's start this process to purchase a home. Wow. And so I made my mind up. He needs a front yard and a backyard to run and play and be a boy in. I want him in a space where there's opportunities and experiences that I didn't get. Yeah. And I know my mom would have tried, but they weren't available. Yeah. Right. And so I want to make sure that even if he's like, man, I'm not into that, at least it's not because it just wasn't there. You weren't exposed. So that led me to saying, all right, got to get out of my hometown. Wow. Got to get back to Little Rock. And so then in the space of getting to the decision of I want to purchase a home, this was the hardest part, was looking at the things that were in my past from a financial perspective that communicated something about who I was then that was still affecting who I was now.
Talk about it.
Right? So I don't know if anyone else went through this. So I went to UALR, and I remember in my freshman year, there was a vendor, a Subway. There was a vendor who had Subway sandwiches, and it was just like free subs.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody was like grabbing them hand over fist.
Right.
And the dude was like, also fill this application out. It was a credit card application.
Ooh, I know about that.
Right.
Yes, I know about that.
We're like, just I write my name on this, put my information down, I get a sandwich. And you know, you a hungry college student. I
know about it.
Ooh, so that was like the first credit card application I ever filled out for. And these folks gave me a credit card. And I did not know nothing about what does this
Talk
mean?
About it.
What do I do? How is this going to affect me? All these things were going on. And then, you know, once I did kind of branch out and had my own place, and do I really know how to manage bills and my income and all these things? So all that's in my past, right?
Yeah.
And although today, you know, we don't miss bills, we don't spend what we don't have, I don't live like that. I still had that in my past that was affecting the thing I wanted to do in my future. And so I had to woman up and look at those things. And I had to look at the money that I misused, and I had to make those things right. And I think that for most people, quite honestly, that's the hardest part.
That's it.
Everybody that's trying to purchase a house is going through the same thing. So you don't, someone may be more affluent and have a few more commas in the bank account and a little bit more disposable income, but we all go through the same scrutiny to be able to be in the position for a bank to say, I want to partner with you so that this can happen.
Yeah.
Right? Whether you paying cash or what, you still have these constructs that you have to go through. So that, first of all, we're all going through it. Yeah. Second of all, yes, we're all coming to the table with different experiences, different baggage. Mine was some credit things that needed to be dealt with. Yeah. And so I had to do that work first. If there's anything I can tell you is don't be scared of that work. It's intimidating, right? Nobody wants to pay money. Yeah. Something that's not going to benefit you right now.
Talk about it.
And if it's in the past. Yeah. Like, we ain't through with this. Why we digging this up? Talk about it. But in order to secure what you want for your future in this realm, in this arena, you got to do it. Because what I needed to have was the information. And I think a lot of people who are trying to, who have said, I want to be a homeowner, they don't have the information.
Talk about it.
They don't have the information, or they've heard someone say, let me help you clean your credit up, and that's temporary. And it's a waste of your money. And they're just kind of like, okay, that's their great white hope. Just please help me, get me there. And then, and because they don't know all the information, they are believing it only to be let down on the other end of it. And so that is the first thing. Take a deep breath, my friends. Be validated in the fact that it is right for you to want to own a home.
Yes, talk about it.
It is right for you to want to set up security and stability for yourself, for your family, for your family's future. It's right. You are in the right space if that's the thought that you're having. Don't let anyone or anything invalidate you, even if you're the first one to do it. Right?
Talk about it.
You are in the right place. I didn't know, right? At my big old age, I didn't know that I could go to a creditor and say, can we work out a payoff deal that's less than what I owe? That saved me. Right? That saved
that's
me.
The game.
It saved me to know that I could go and have these negotiating conversations.
Yes.
And then I could get this thing taken care of. And then it's not affecting my credit history and my credit score anymore. Which is getting me closer to my goal.
Talk about
right?
it. Yeah.
And so that was a big deal for me. I had about $8,000 or so in just miscellaneous debt. This is outside of like student loans, outside of medical bills, because those are real things that are in your credit profile. But just miscellaneous debt, some delinquent accounts, some credit accounts, just different things. And it was about $8,000. And after I got the information on what was there, and then got the information on how to move forward and ask the right questions, I was able to pay all that off at a price of about $3,300.
Wow.
Like $5,000 was forgiven, essentially.
Ooh, can we give God glory for that?
And this is miscellaneous stuff. This is not just, loans or credit. It was just miscellaneous things, because I went on and womaned up and got to the table of the conversation and said, hey, this is what I'm wanting to make this right. What can we do? And most of these creditors and debtors, they want to make it right. They want to be done with you too.
Yeah.
Right? They want to be done too. So they're willing to work with you. And so then I, 15, 20 years from my first experience with a credit card, was encouraged to go ahead and apply for a line of credit.
Okay,
I did not apply for a $4,000, $10,000, $22,000 line of credit. The first thing that I did was I got a secure card. I paid $200 of my fund money, is what I call it. So this would be $200 I would spend every month anyways. And so I took that $200 of my fund money and I put that in a secure card. And that card had promises to help build my credit as long as I kept. So some people say keep your 30% balance on your credit card. I spend and pay it off every month. That's what I do. I saw the most effective uptick in my credit score by I would carry a balance for a time frame before that balance was due or that statement was due, pay the full balance off. And I do that every month. So how do I do that? Here's the easiest tip I can give you.
Got it.
Do you have Netflix? Do you have Hulu?
Yeah.
Disney Plus? You're already paying for those, yes. And you enjoy them and you use them, yes. It's not frivolous necessarily. Put those on your credit card. Let them come out as a draft. And then before your credit card is due, pay those off. Because were you going to already pay them?
Oh, this is gold. Already pay them? This is gold.
And so let that revolve on your credit. And that bumps your credit up every single month.
This is a game.
Every single month.
This is game.
Now, if I could be real with you, when I started this process, I had a credit score of 586.
Okay.
That's well. Let me. When I first pulled it, it was like 530 something.
Got it.
And the first jump I saw was to 586.
Wow.
And then I checked my credit just yesterday, just because I like to be in the know.
Yeah, of course.
My credit score right now across all 3 bureaus is over 700. This is not even 2 full years. And doing the things I'm telling you. I'm no expert. I'm just telling you what worked for me.
I love it.
Just tell you what worked for me. So getting into that space, right, and giving yourself time right there. I had that secure card for about 6 months. Then because I had done those things, that company offered me a non-secure card, which is just a line of credit through them.
Got it.
For double what that card was.
Got it.
I got that. And then
I love that.
Yeah. And so those things come along. Now listen, don't spend what you don't have. Don't spend what you don't have, okay? So I have that credit card. And now y'all heard me say earlier, $200 is my fun money every month.
Yes.
I spend $100 on the secure card and $100 on the non-secure card. And I revolve it that way because that's what I'm comfortable with spending as my fun money. I do not pay bills that have to be paid. I don't pay my light bill. I don't pay my water bill unless that money was I just moved it over, right? I don't buy my groceries or buy my gas unless I'm pulling from that budget and taking that budget money to pay that statement.
Okay.
I don't use my credit cards to sustain living.
Got it.
Okay, because that's where we mess up. And we run up these limits and we can't pay them back.
Yes,
and then
talk
we
about
take
it.
our credit.
Talk about
right?
it.
And so then I was encouraged to apply for a non-secure card.
Yeah.
My hands were shaking. I did this in front of a boss.
Did you?
My hands were shaking because I was like, oh God, I don't know how this is going to go. And I got approved.
Look at that.
And I had that card. It was a $500 limit. I had it for about 6 months, and then they doubled that limit.
That's what I'm talking
right?
about.
I don't have to spend $1,000. It's there.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, you do these things, and it doesn't have to be aggressive. I had my Netflix and my Hulu on a revolving auto draft out of my credit card, right? And those small things are what helped to boost me in the direction that I wanted to be in. So I did all of that. That went on for about a year, maybe a little over a year.
Yeah.
So then I was like, am I ready? Am I ready to go ahead and, started looking. Every house I looked at was gone. I'd go look at a house and it would be under contract by the time I got in the car. The housing market is something.
Yeah.
But so let me give you a word of advice there. Do not get discouraged.
Talk about it.
Do not get discouraged, right? Now, I believe in this wholeheartedly from my experience.
Yeah.
What is for me is for me.
Okay, got it.
I believe that my steps and my life experience are ordered and ordained.
Yes.
And because I surrender to that, even if something doesn't feel good, right? Y'all just heard me say I left my career to care for my mom.
Right.
And she was gone, right? That was the most tragic experience I've walked through. 2 years later, my dad was gone, right? The most tragic things I've ever experienced, but those were in my path. Those experiences were in my path. Those experiences and experiences that feel the same are not meant to make you abort the mission, right? They're not meant to make you retreat from what the goal was. I know who I am.
Yes.
I know who I've been called to be. And when stuff starts happening, that doesn't change who I am or who I'm supposed to be.
Talk about it. Yes.
Does it sometimes make me feel like I lost my breath? Do I sometimes feel like, okay, my hip hurting,
Yeah.
my back hurting, I
Yeah.
can't stand like I stood, I gotta sit down and deal with this? Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I lay down. Sometimes I roll around and cry.
Get it out. For real.
Sometimes, but it does. None of those things changes who I am and what the goal is.
Yeah.
And so, what God had put in my path was that I would own a home, that I would buy a home for my son. And so, while things were still going crazy, I was still making steps towards what He showed me. And just before I purchased this house, I had fallen in love with the idea of a house, and I had not seen it. And I was already, I could see my son playing across the street in the big open field, and I was, gonna have a little garden, and I just, I had fought, and then I saw the house, and I was like, this can't be it. The price was great, but I was like, this can't. So that had the power to make me almost feel like I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna just keep this apartment going. My son can't play out here because y'all crazy in this apartment.
You already know.
But we just don't, we'll go to the park when the weather's nice. And I went through that for about a month. And then the home I purchased came out of left field. Right? So here's the message in what I just said. Do the things. Do them. Don't be afraid of what's in your past. Don't be afraid of what's in front of you to do. Don't be intimidated. Don't feel like there's no way. There is always a way. Amen. Right? But be open to whatever is supposed to find its way to you. I was doing the things. I saw very clearly what I thought I wanted it to be. Yeah. And out of left field came what God had for me. Amen. Out of left field came exactly what was meant for my son and I. So I was never going to be able to figure out what it should look like. I couldn't envision that. Yeah. He had it. Yeah. And He released it into my path. And it was released into my path at that time because I was doing the things to be in alignment with the place to receive it, if that makes sense.
Now, if somebody is watching the podcast, what would you say to them? Because one of the things that you said was stability. I have stability. Now, somebody may think, okay, I have stability renting. I have stability renting an apartment. So I have that now. I have a roof over my head. What would you say? Could you define what stability is versus renting an apartment versus home ownership?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is that apartment will never be mine. It will never ever be mine, and I can make it the most beautiful, comfortable. It can just be eclectically me, right? And eclectically my son, but it will never be ours. Wow. And so now I don't want to sound like one of those ones that's like, well, you'll never own it, because some people, their perception of home ownership, there's no value in that for them, and that's a real thing. But if you are only basing the fact that you don't have value in it yet because of stability's sake, how stable can you be in something that's not yours? How stable can you truly be? And so you're stable.
That's good.
Right? You're stable in your ability to manage your bills and your income. You're stable in that. You can do that anywhere. Wow. You're stable in your ability to anticipate what your needs might be and what your needs currently are. You're stable in that. Yeah. But you're not stable in something that isn't yours, that you don't have the ability to have control over. Wow. And those things can still come up in home ownership, right? Yeah. You can get sick and you can lose your job. You can be dismissed from a role, and then your income changes and all these things, right? But even in that, right, like I signed on my home the day that the last day that my company said they wanted me to work for them, right? I was released from a position because of budget cuts and business reduction 12 days before I closed. And on the day that I closed, I sent my computer back to corporate. I didn't have a job, right? And I kept moving forward, y'all. This is a testimony. I kept moving forward because that was the yes, right? And then in the midst of God, He restored, He put me in a different path as far as we talked about that with my profession. And that brought back a resource from the source. But going back to this whole notion, if stability is your reason and you're stable in renting, but you have an openness to home ownership, you got to define what really is stability. You're stable in supporting what you have going on.
Yeah.
You can do that in a home,
Yes.
right? And then I would say this, look at what you're spending. Decide, is this necessary for me? Right? We make sacrifices all the time. You just became a father.
Yes.
And so, you know, before I had my son, I loved bags and purses and shoes and jewelry and hats and accessories and nails, and I loved all those things.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to lose who I was in those things, but my priorities needed to shift. Right? I needed to make room for my son. I needed to make room to be able to care for him properly.
I've seen people, they may say, oh, the home buying process is too tedious or too difficult or it's too stressful. One thing that you mentioned was, hey, it's about the time I got in the car, the home that I seen was already under contract. And we just spoke about motivation. How did you continue to keep going? Because some people would just say, hey, well, I don't like the market right now, so I'm just going to wait. What kept you going, even though you were coming up against those, I guess, safe to say, obstacles?
Yeah.
How did you keep going?
I believed that it was for me. Right? I'm going to tie this back to carrying my son. I was pregnant. He was there.
Yeah.
But then my body and all these other factors and all these other things started to come and say, you can't have this. You can't have him. This is a figment, or this is about to end horribly.
Yeah.
But he was there. I was carrying him. I had connected to the fact that this is a reality.
Yes.
This is real for me. I can have this. Yes. Right? And so in those lowest times of the process, and there were some because it was just disappointing to not get what you thought you wanted. In those lowest times, I had to hold on to the fact that it's there. It's out there for me. This just isn't the one, right? This just isn't the one. And for me, faith is, I believe no matter what I'm going through. I believe no matter what all the others have to say about it. I believe and I trust that this is for me. So that was the motivation to say, okay, do the one next thing today. You can't do much else because you're feeling some type of way. Just do one thing today that's going to propel you even further or closer to what it is that you say that you want. I'll also say this. Start now if you haven't already. Become a good bookkeeper for yourself. Everything's online now, right? Your bank statements, you can go back to however many bank statements as you want in your banking app. You can see what you're spending. You know, you have access at your fingertips constantly. I have an iPhone, so what I do is I pull folders and I'll pull documents, I'll download the files that are like present, like let's just say 3 years is a good place to start, right? And I'll put into a file I have a file that's called My Future. I have a file that's called My Finances. I have a file that's called My Son's Future, right? I have a file that's called Fun Stuff. And so I keep in those files documents that are important for whatever that goal is. Yeah. So start getting used to that, because when you get to the point where a lender is ready to get into, business with you, they're going to want to see all your financials.
Talk about
They're going to see how you spend. I mean, they go through it with a fine-tooth comb. And I had to do this for the past 2 years, right? I keep my bank statements. I had to have those for the past 3 months at the point of closing. So go ahead, right? If you're the person who gets some in the mail and you're like, okay, I took that. Maybe not. Maybe take a picture of it, put it in that file on your phone. Or if you are someone who likes the paper, go put it up in a folder. And so those are the things you also need to do, because what you don't want to do is do all this work with your credit, do all this work with your perspective and your mindset, and then that's taken care of. But then you don't know how to give these folks what they say they need. You can't find them. When did I file? Did I file my taxes? Can't find the tax return. You don't want to do that, because then you're just adding on to the labor of the process, and that can discourage you as well.
How has living a vegan lifestyle, how has that helped with your home ownership journey?
Thank you for asking that question that way.
Yeah.
I want to clarify. I am somewhere between eating vegan and vegetarian.
Okay.
It is something that I changed this year. So I want to be really, really clear. I never want to like create a sense of hypocrisy.
Cool.
Being vegan is what saved my life. Switching my diet to a vegan plant-based diet is literally what saved my life. I was on 14 medications and was dropped down to 6. 3 of those I will take for the rest of my life.
Okay.
And so I have been on them since I was like 3 years old.
Okay.
So those are literally life-sustaining medications that I have to have.
Yeah.
My journey to wanting to save my life through like what I consumed came from a time before my son where I was just so sick. And because I was out doing things in the world, I would find myself in places where there was no one who knew I was there or who knew me there. And I'd get sick and it'd be like, I think I'm going to die. Who's going to call my mom? And so that was one thing that dropped down in me, is that I never want to break her heart. And somebody has to find her and say, we found your daughter. And, you know, I didn't want to give her that experience. And I was very close to that.
Wow.
And so that was kind of the catalyst. Because I have felt so good, because I made these changes, it was like, why would I not want to keep doing it? And, you know, my son is now about to be 7 and he's real active. And I want to be active with him. I don't want to be like, will you go on, baby?
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit, and I have done that still. Like, I'll sit here and I can see the disappointment.
Yeah,
he just wants to do it with me.
Yes.
I mean, to do it with him. And so we have this whole house now, this whole front yard and backyard where we can go and play and have fun and experience. And those things that are valuable to him right now, one day, those experiences won't matter to him as much. He'll rather be with his friends or do whatever his thing is, right? So I want to give him that while I can. But I do plan to start gardening because I want to consume fresher food. And if I grow it, I can trust it. And so that being a homeowner has given me the space to be able to start really thinking through what that plan will be. And then, like, how amazing is it that I can supplement my diet and my son's diet and do it in a really healthy way with what I am able to produce on my land.
I love that. I love that. And the last question is, you spoke about you being an elder earlier in the interview. Now with you being operating in ministry, how has home ownership helped you with the ministry?
My background in ministry is outreach ministry.
Okay, got it.
And so outreach or evangelistic ministry for me looked like chasing folks down in the streets, and specifically teenagers.
Okay, got it.
And in my experience in ministry, I have had 6 teenagers that came to live with me. One, I became their legal guardian.
That's amazing.
They were just disenfranchised, and because of just, you know, hiccups in the system, just decisions made by others, I took them. And so it's always been a thing, is that I have always wanted my home to be a hub of ministry. And so one of my things that was on my wish list about my home was that I wanted a bonus room. Right? I did not say that to my realtor. I didn't say it out loud to anyone. I don't know why I didn't, but I wanted a bonus space.
Got it.
And so when I saw the home that I purchased, there were 3 bedrooms, a nice, spacious, beautiful kitchen, a living room, a laundry area, and then there was this door. And it had been the garage, but it had been converted already into a bonus space. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. And so one of the first things that I said to God when I said I want to go ahead and try to get this house, and then when I got the house, was I dedicated it back to being used for ministry. Now I'm waiting on God to tell me exactly how he wants me to do it, but I'm open to it. I'm 100% open to it because he provided it. And so I want to give it back for the sake. Like, I'm not like, ain't nobody come in my house. We got to protect. Now, I do have ADT. I have a whole security system.
Hold up now. You ain't just going to be rolling up on me now. Hold up now. Don't do that. Don't get it confused.
Don't come playing.
Right.
But I give this house where I'm at in this neighborhood. I give it all back. And I want it to be like, what sense would it make for my son and I to be in this big house and we don't share it?
Yes.
We don't share it, right? And so
Yes.
I'm, with discernment and sensitivity, I am like, Lord, tell me who, tell me when, tell me how. How do you want to let this bring glory to the kingdom? So for me, it's a big old yes all the time.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. This podcast is I just appreciate you so much. Now that we're wrapping up, is there one last thing that it doesn't necessarily have to be home ownership, but what's one last thing that you would tell somebody just they may just be going through the struggle. They may not even be interested in buying a home right now. But what's one thing that you would share to somebody just to help them keep going, whatever it may be?
This is the most important thing that I would share with anybody, no matter where you find yourself.
Yes.
You have permission to experience what you've experienced, to go through those experiences the way you've gone through them, but you have permission to take a stance and say that I am not just the experiences that I had, or I am not just the things that happened to me. You have permission to decide that you want to dream. You have permission to decide that you want to achieve goals. You have the permission to decide that you want to make an impact that doesn't look like what your experiences already have been. You have that permission, and there is nothing more powerful than your agreement in yourself and mind to go after those things. I don't care what comes up against you. I don't care what has already come up against you. When you decide that this is what you want and you deserve it and it is for you, when you make that decision, you can then tie your faith to that, and you can push through every barrier, every wall, every situation, every person that would try to come and convince you that it is not for you. Give yourself that space to know that you are that important. The reason I know it is because you exist, right? You are that important to be able to have those things that you say that you want, those good things, right? So let me sit here and say this to you. If you connect with me right now, anyone who's been in your life and has been a part of your experience that has told you that you cannot, or that you are not, or that you are not enough, put that on me and accept my deepest apology for communicating that lie to you. Let me say I'm sorry to you for creating that space, which isn't true. Wow. Accept that so that you can release it, so that you can go ahead and start running towards what's yours.
Ooh. And well, we're thankful, we're grateful for Elder Dara just coming on, spending her time with us. And I pray and I hope that you took one thing, even one thing. I'm gonna do this to help take your life, your business, your financial situation to the next level.
Yeah.
God bless. Thank you so much, and thank you again for tuning in with the Real with Neal podcast. See you soon.